This is the Music History In-Depth podcast for December 11th through the 17th. On this week's show, we discuss the mystery surrounding Sam Cooke's death, the strange and scary case of Justin Bieber and three men, and we say happy birthday to three people, two of them legends and one who is definitely making a case for becoming one. Sam Cooke was born Samuel Cooke on January 22, 1931 in Clarksdale, Mississippi as the fifth of 8 children. His family moved when he was 2 years old to Chicago, Illinois. Sam's father was a minister, and like most ministers' kids, Sam sang in the church choir. Unlike a lot of kids, though, Sam had talent. When he was 14, Sam joined a gospel group called the Highway QCs. It was around this time that Sam met and became friends with soon-to-be famous entertainer Mr. Lou Rawls. When Sam was 19 years old, he became the lead singer of the group The Soul Stirrers. Under Cooke's leadership, the Soul Stirrers had hits like Peace in the Valley and One More River. The Soul Stirrers helped gospel music cross over to a younger audience, mainly because of Cooke's appeal with the girls. The group would become so influential to gospel and pop music that eventually they would be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. In the late 1950s, Sam decided that he wanted to do R&B and pop music. His first hit was Lovable, which was a remake of the gospel song Wonderful. In order to not alienate his gospel fans, he released it under the name of Dale Cooke, but everybody knew who he was because he had such a unique voice. The Soul Stirrers record label, Specialty Records, was a gospel music record label, but they allowed Sam to record secular music. They were under the impression, though, that he would record music that sounded more like Little Richard, who was popular at the time, since Specialty Records really just wanted to make a lot more money using Sam as their conduit on that. However, after arguments between the label head, Mr. Art Roop, and Sam's producer, Bumps Blackwell, both Sam and Bumps left the label in a huff. In 1957, Sam then signed with Keene Records. He also added the extra E to his last name to show that he had made a fresh start, so his last name was now spelled C-O-O-K-E. Starting in 1957 with the song You Send Me, Sam started racking up major hits. What made Sam even more special was that he wrote all of his songs instead of relying on a songwriting team like, say, anyone at Motown Records. In 1960, Sam signed a record deal with RCA Victor, which netted him a $100,000 advance, or just over $1 million in today's money. With RCA, Sam had the hit songs Another Saturday Night, Bring It On Home to Me, Chain Gang, Cupid, and Twistin' the Night Away. In 1961, Sam started his own record label called SAR Records, and he also had Kags, K-A-G-S, which was his own publishing and management firm. In 1963, Sam inked a 5-year record deal with his own record label. He had to work out a royalty percentage deal with RCA, who he was still technically recording with, but the arrangement made himself and his manager partner, Alan Klein, an awful lot of money. In late 1964, Sam was doing pretty well financially and artistically. He had also gotten involved in the civil rights movement of the era. His protest song, A Change Is Gonna Come, is considered by some to be the greatest protest song of all time. Sam also had the usual issues with singers and women. To paraphrase the Temptations hit, Sam was a rolling stone. Wherever he laid his hat was his home, and he laid his hat around a lot, we'll just say. He married a couple of times, had at least 6 kids, at least 3 of those out of wedlock. A woman sued him, claiming that he was the father of her kid. He denied it, but then ended up settling out of court on that one. It was a mess. And it was because of his wandering eye in this case that Sam Cooke cements his place in music history for this particular week. On the evening of December 11th, 1964, Sam Cooke checked into the Hacienda Motel in Los Angeles, California. He did not leave the motel alive. According to the testimony of motel manager Bertha Franklin, Cooke attempted to assault his companion, Alyssa Boyer, who he had taken to the motel that night after picking her up at a local nightclub. Once Boyer escaped the attempted assault, she ran to get Franklin, who didn't answer the door right away. Because of that delay, Boyer said that she then ran down the street to a nearby payphone to call the police. Once Cooke realized that Boyer had escaped, he ran down to the manager's office demanding to know where Boyer was hiding. Franklin told Cooke that she was the only one in the office, but Sam did not believe her and broke into the office. Cooke then attacked Franklin, who then shot him after finding her gun. Bertha Franklin was on the phone at the time with the hotel's owner, Evelyn Carr, who corroborated Franklin's story, for Carr also called the police after she heard the commotion over the phone. First, Boyer's banging on the door to get Franklin, and then Cooke's banging and the subsequent struggle. Franklin said that Sam, who was still alive after the first shot, yelled, "Lady, you shot me," and tried to go after Franklin again. Franklin said that she then hit Cooke on the head with a broomstick, and Sam fell to the floor and died from too much blood loss. Franklin was later acquitted on murder charges, and the case was ruled justifiable homicide. There has been some doubt thrown at that story since then, of course, like every other conspiracy theory that rolls through. Some people believe that Boyer went to the motel willingly and allegedly robbed Cooke and then fled, which was why Cooke was enraged. Boyer had been arrested for prostitution in the past and for doing the old dash and grab. So I guess it's really not out of the realm of possibility. Who knows? Plus, in her haste to leave the room, Boyer said that she grabbed some of Sam's clothes, including his pants, which supposedly had a lot of money in the pockets. Singer Etta James said that she saw Sam's body before he was buried and said that his injuries, especially how badly he seemed to have been beaten, did not match the official police report. Others think that Cooke's manager orchestrated the killing, since all copyrights to Cooke's songs went to his manager's company. However, since these possibilities were outside the initial scope of the investigation, they were never pursued. That lack of additional investigation led to controversy and disbelief as well. One of Sam's famous friends, boxing legend, the iconic Muhammad Ali, said, quote, "If Cooke had been Frank Sinatra, the Beatles, or Ricky Nelson, the FBI would be investigating." End quote. Sam Cooke had two funerals. The first was on December 18, 1964, in Chicago, Illinois, where over 200,000 people waited in line to view his body. After that, his body was flown to Los Angeles, where his second funeral was held on December 19th. Ray Charles sang at the Los Angeles funeral. Sam's body was then interned at Forest Lawn Memorial Park Cemetery in Glendale, California, which also has a bunch of other famous people should you ever decide to go visit. For her part, Franklin said that she had gotten death threats after what had happened and ended up leaving her job. She then sued Sam's estate for mental anguish. Sam's estate then countersued, but Franklin ended up winning $30,000 in damages. Sam's place in music history as one of the greatest singers of all time is very hard to argue. He is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame twice, once for his solo work and once for his work with the Soul Stirrers. He received a Lifetime Achievement Grammy Award, even though he never actually won a Grammy while he was alive. He's also in the Songwriters Hall of Fame, the National Rhythm and Blues Music Hall of Fame, the Mississippi Musicians Hall of Fame, and as a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. What's interesting is that the nature of his death seems to have been forgotten, while his legacy of being one of the most important voices in the history of soul music continues to this day. Also, the fact that he was one of the first, if not the first, artist to own his own publishing rights and make a lot of money as a business person, as opposed to a lot of other artists who give away their publishing and royalties and then end up having to sue, etc., etc. I'm not sure, though, if in this day and age his legacy would still be the same had the events happened the way that they did, say, in this century. That's mainly because of today's toxic media and especially the social media environment. After all, nobody thinks about O.J. Simpson and thinks great running back who played for the Buffalo Bills is in the Football Hall of Fame. And I doubt anybody will use the words Kevin Spacey and great actor again without adding some other choice words. You get the gist. The murder of soul great Mr. Sam Cooke at the Hacienda Motel in California on December 11th, 1964. And now, the strange and really scary story of Justin Bieber and the Three Men, which sounds an awful lot like a fairy tale, but it is not, I guarantee you. Once upon a time, there was an inmate named Dana Martin. Dana was serving 2 life sentences for killing a 15-year-old girl in Vermont. Dana had a bit of a fixation on Justin Bieber, we'll say. He even went so far as to get a tattoo of Bieber on his leg. Dana wrote to Bieber constantly, but became very angry when Justin would never write him back. Sounds like Eminem's song, Stan. Very scary. Dana decided that something had to be done to teach Justin a lesson. He decided to hatch a plot and got his fellow inmate, Mark Aaron Sack, to help out with this. And since Martin wasn't going to be getting out of jail anytime soon, and Sark was, then it was up to Sark to carry out the plan. The plan was for Sark to tie up a couple of loose ends of Martin's in Vermont, literally. Sark was to kill 2 people in Vermont using a paisley tie and then go to New York City, where Bieber had a concert at Madison Square Garden. And there, Sark was to kill Bieber and his bodyguard. Of all killings, everyone was to be then, castrated. In return, Sark was supposed to get $2,500 per testicle, plus a Vermont farm. Okay, that's a weird deal, but whatever. The castration part had Sark feeling a little squeamish, so Sark got his nephew Tanner Ruan in on the deal, and once Sark was released from prison, he grabbed Ruan and off they went towards Vermont. The plan was going pretty well, actually. All right, well, the driving towards Vermont was going well. That is until they missed the exit that they were supposed to take and instead ended up at a checkpoint on the Canadian border. And there, Border Patrol agents discovered a warrant for Sark on an outstanding probation violation and arrested him. They let his nephew Ruan go, though, and like all good lackeys, Ruan went and called his boss Martin, where he was still in prison, where they record and listen to all your conversations. A quick investigation happened, and on December 13th, 2013, the entire plot unraveled and all involved were charged. About a year later, though, Martin gave an interview to Details magazine. During the interview, he said that the reason why he put the plot together was because he wanted to be remembered. He also claimed that he still had assassins out to get Bieber, but that he would call off the assassins if Bieber would meet with him face to face. Such is the scary cost of fame, and no matter what you think about Justin Bieber, remember this story, and you'll have an awful lot more sympathy for what he has been through in his life. Next time you read or hear about celebrities getting warrants to keep stalkers and other fans away, don't dismiss it. Don't laugh at it. And definitely don't say that this is what happens when you become famous and that you should expect it. This is not a joke, people. People end up dying because of this. Ask somebody who we did a story on for last week, because that was John Lennon, and also Dimebag Darrell of Pantera. The unraveling of the plot to kidnap and kill Justin Bieber on December 13th, 2013. Before we continue, we'd like to tell you about the Music History Today podcast, where we go over the events that happened on that particular day in music history. The Music History Today podcast drops every single day, including weekends, on this podcast network. Now, back to the Music History In-Depth podcast. In 1976, music and movie producer Robert Stigwood was looking for his next big hit. He had come off of making two successful movie musicals, Jesus Christ Superstar and The Who's Tommy. An article in New York Magazine caught his attention. It was titled The Tribal Rights of the New Saturday Night by Nick Cohen. The article told the story about a guy named Vinny and his buddies who were dancers in a discotheque in Brooklyn and who always dreamed of something bigger. Stigwood was hooked on the story and decided to turn the article into a movie. Vinny became Tony Manero. Stigwood got one of his old groups from his music-producing days to do music for this movie, and then grabbed an up-and-coming actor from a television show and released the movie. That movie, Saturday Night Fever, held its premiere at Mann's Chinese Theater on December 14, 1977, was put into wide release into movie theaters on December 16, 1977, and became one of the biggest movies of the year. It turned the disco music genre into a global sensation, the soundtrack into one of the biggest selling movie soundtracks of all time, the music group on the soundtrack, the Bee Gees, into one of the biggest groups of all time, and the actor, John Travolta, into an international superstar, along with getting him an Academy Award nomination for playing Tony. Now, this story would be pretty good right there, except that it's not the end of the story. In 1994, almost 18 years after the original magazine article came out, Nick Cohen fessed up. In an article in the Guardian newspaper, he admitted that he actually made up most of the article. See, Nick had just moved to New York City at that point in his life when he was hired to write the article, and he didn't know the neighborhood in Brooklyn well enough to know any of the guys there. The name of the discotheque, Odyssey 2000, was real, and Vinny and his friends were Italian, but that was about all that was real about that article. In fact, Vinny was actually based on a guy Nick knew from his old English neighborhood back in the 1960s. So, you see, John Travolta and the Bee Gees owe their superstardom partially to fake news, as luck would have it. When the article premiered in the June 7, 1976 issue of New York Magazine, which led to Saturday Night Fever being made. Also, a little bonus trivia for you. June 7th also plays heavily into something else concerning John Travolta. On June 7th, 1972, the Broadway musical Grease premiered. When it was turned into a movie, Robert Stigwood was the producer again and grabbed a guy he had made into a star, Mr. John Travolta, for the main role. And that 1-2 punch of Saturday Night Fever and Grease made John Travolta into the hottest actor in the world. And then along came Urban Cowboy, which really ratcheted him up to a basically supernova level. June 7th must be a pretty lucky number for Travolta, at least. The premiere of one of the biggest movies ever made, Saturday Night Fever, on December 14th, 1977, with its wide release date into movie theaters on December 16th, 1977. Our next story has a neat little twist to it. It's going to start off one way and then end up in a completely different direction, but it'll be worth it. Stick with me on this one. First, 1986 was a big year for Run DMC, who released their groundbreaking album, Raising Hell. The album was produced by Rick Rubin, who had a major role in one of the most important songs of all time. The album was almost done when they decided to do one more song to pique interest from their fans who liked the hard rock sounds of the previous albums King of Rock and Rockbox. After some discussion, they fell upon the idea of doing the song Walk This Way from Aerosmith. Originally, they were just going to sample the song, but Rick and Jam Master Jay wanted to redo the song completely. Run DMC put out the call to Aerosmith to gauge interest. At first, there wasn't any. See, what has to be remembered is that in 1985, no one, and I mean no one, liked Aerosmith. Known as the Toxic Twins at that point, Aerosmith's Steven Tyler and Joe Perry were looked at as part of a group whose heyday was back in the 1970s, and they had a lot of issues, both internal and mainly of a chemical variety. They were at that point done as a band. Finito. Left to the dustbins of rock music, basically. But even with their careers in free fall, and basically landing flat on the ground at that time, Steven and Joe didn't want to do the song, mainly because they hated hip-hop. For them and a lot of other artists, hip-hop was essentially taking their songs, using them without paying the artists, and then making money off of them. And the Toxic Twins wanted no part of it, and I honestly do not blame them. Rick, however, convinced them to at least come to the studio to try and work something out. And once Steven and Joe saw how Jam Master Jay could cut the record precisely where he wanted the beat to be at will on the turntables, those guys were fascinated, and then they wanted in on the collaboration. That particular moment, by the way, was caught on video, and if you look on YouTube, you will find that video of them discovering it and getting excited about it. In any event, the music video for the song was also iconic. The video unfolds with both acts on opposite sides of a wall, and then once Run DMC start rapping loud to the beat, Steven breaks through the wall with a mic stand. Then everybody ends up on a concert stage together as a show of solidarity, kumbaya, blah, 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 breaking down the barriers between both the rock and hip-hop culture, because remember, back in those days, those two cultures did not mix, ever. Rumor has it that Steven couldn't actually break down the wall at first, but they actually left that part into the final cut. Kind of cool. The song, album, and music video all became huge hits. It also gave Aerosmith their career back, as the band then got back together and started putting out hit songs like Love in an Elevator, Dude Looks Like a Lady, Angel, among others, basically giving them another 30 years to their career. Here's where the twist comes in. The twist in the story is why Aerosmith actually named the song Walk This Way in the first place. The story goes that some of the guys in Aerosmith took a break from recording their album Toys in the Attic to go see a movie, which premiered in movie theaters on December 15th, 1974. In the movie, there's a scene where Igor, who's played by Marty Feldman, tells Dr. Frankenstein, that's Frankenstein, played by Gene Wilder, to walk this way, which Frankenstein does, mimicking Igor's walk. Hilarious scene, by the way. Hilarious movie. Because that movie was Mel Brooks's comedy classic, Young Frankenstein. The guys in Aerosmith laughed so hard during the scene that when they walked back to the studio, walk this way, to finish up the song that they were working on, they decided to name the song after that scene. And that is where the song title Walk This Way came from, and the movie that the title was based on, Young Frankenstein, that's Frankenstein, premiered on December 15th, 1974. And it's an excellent movie. You should go check it out when you get the chance. It's online somewhere. This week, there are 3 quick birthdays to highlight, and they have to be quick because if we did stories on every single one of them, we would be here forever, and no one has time for that. Especially this first guy, because this first guy is considered one of the greatest vocalists of all time. He sold over 150 million albums. He was a singer, an actor, and also a producer, and also a record label owner, I might add. Reprise Records. He's won Grammy Awards, an Oscar, and also a Golden Globe. He was in The Manchurian Candidate, The Man with the Golden Arm, From Here to Eternity, Ocean's 11, Robin and the Seven Hoods, Come Blow Your Horn, On the Town, Guys and Dolls, High Society, and Pal Joey, and that's just a few of his hits. He was also the ringleader of the Rat Pack, with Sammy Davis Jr., Dean Martin, Joey Bishop, and a few others, actually. He is known as The Voice, the chairman of the board, and Old Blue Eyes. He is a legendary, the iconic, New Jersey born, as they like to say, Mr. Frank Sinatra, born December the 12th, 1915. This next person is the legend in the making that I was referring to earlier in the podcast. She is one of the biggest selling artists of her generation. She's put out at least 13 different albums at this point, I believe, both pop and country. She's worth, as of 2024, at least $1.6 billion, probably a whole lot more at this point, according to Forbes magazine anyway. She's been named one of Rolling Stone magazine's top 100 greatest songwriters of all time, even if a lot of those songs involved ex-boyfriends. Her fan base of Swifties rivals the Beehive as far as their fierce devotion goes, and it is calculated, and she is also one of the best business people of all time, in terms of entertainment anyway. She is known as Swiftie, a.k.a. Miss Taylor Swift, born on December the 13th, 1989. Of course, the name of the album that won her first Album of the Year award at the Grammys, named after her birthday. Loves me some Swifties. Loves me some Swiftie. Great artist. This last person is one of the most recognizable names in classical music. His Fifth Symphony is probably the most famous piece of classical music in the world, mainly for its opening notes. Dun, 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 dun. Towards the end of his career, he began to lose his hearing, but he continued to write music regardless. In all, he wrote 9 symphonies, 32 piano sonatas, 16 string quartets, 5 piano concertos, a violin concerto, and an opera. He is the iconic, one of probably only 4 classical people you know, the others being maybe Bach, Mozart, I don't know, Brahms, but this guy takes the cake. He is Mr. Ludwig Van Beethoven, born December 17th, 1770. And that is it for the Music History In-Depth podcast for December 11th through the 17th. Thank you very, very much for listening or watching if you're on YouTube or Spotify.